My name again is Russ Karow. I'm head of the Crop and Soil Science Department at Oregon State University. And what I'm going to do is spin off from the product side of this and talk a little bit about some of the production realities as far as we know them at this point in time here in Oregon, and what that may mean for hemp industry in the state of Oregon. And so trying to align expectations at this point. So crops, new crops, alternate crops are nothing new to the state of Oregon. We've got, at last estimate, over 220 different crops that are being grown, crops and natural resource products across the state. There's over 100 of those crops, commodities that have a farm gate value of over $1 million. So unlike other parts of the nation where the growers are faced with very few cropping alternatives, we have many choices in this state. And unlike growers in some other parts of the nation, if you ask a grower here, you bring them something and say, what do you think about chicory? The questions they'll ask are, where can I get the seed? What do I know? Can you tell me about the production conditions? How much is it worth, and when are you going to pay me? And from those 4 points, people can, if it's something that is workable, they can pretty well figure it out and see if it makes sense in our production environment. What I've done in the back, I don't know if everybody picked it up, but there's a handout that has far more technical detail than most of you are probably going to be interested in. But for those that are interested in thinking about producing hemp, I'd ask you to pick a copy of that up and take a look at some of the information that's there. The short story is that hemp is a warm season crop. It would be very similar to sweet corn, soybeans, sunflower. If you think about the Willamette Valley, and everybody goes, well, we grow corn in the Willamette Valley, but it's sweet corn. It's not grain corn. There's very little grain corn grown here. Very few sunflowers, very few soybeans, and that's because of the temperature regime that we all love in Western Oregon and across Oregon. We have a Mediterranean climate. Rainfall comes during the winter months, and during the summer we have cool night temperatures and moderate heat. We rarely, of late, we've been getting up into the 90s and 100s, but generally we expect that the summer temperatures are going to be in the high 80s. Something like a corn plant, the optimum growing conditions for a corn plant is if the nighttime temperature drops below 50 degrees, the plant goes into physiological shock because it's not designed to grow with its physiology at temperatures that low. And the top end temperature for something like corn is 86 degrees, so it's got a fairly narrow range. We think that hemp has a wider range than that. We've not grown hemp here, we've not grown current varieties, but we can look at the information that's available from other parts of the world. And what we find in most plant biology, plant physiology, is that you don't change the plant significantly. There may be things at the edges, and that's what we're going to have to look at. The plants that are well adapted to colder night temperatures, shorter growing seasons. But at this point, looking at the information we can find from both Canada and from Europe and trying to translate that into an Oregon context, we're going to be really hard pushed to grow seeded hemp here in the Willamette Valley. The maturity, because of the temperature regimes that we've got, you're going to be looking at maturation in late September, October. And if you're trying to mature a crop, dry a crop down, you know what late September and October is like. Fiber crop may be much easier. Depending on the varieties, the maturity of the fiber occurs when the male flowers on the plant have matured, so it's much earlier in the growing season. And there you'd be looking at things in July, August, which make much more sense. So we may be able to easily grow fiber crops. The seeded crops, getting both seed and fiber, may be more difficult. And then the other thing we have to think about is we enjoy our dry summers, but if you're trying to grow a crop during the summer and actively grow that crop as the industrial hemp would be growing, you're going to need water. And if you think about the corn, the green beans, the other crops that are out in the valley in the summer months, they're being irrigated. And so you're going to have to figure out if you're going to grow the crop on large scale, where are you going to get the water from? And then the question that other the current large commercial growers are going to ask is, what's it worth? What are you going to pay me? And they're going to look at the production economics of that. Do I put my water on green beans? Do I put my water on sweet corn, which are very high value crops, versus something like hemp? So there are, we need to think about some of those possibilities. Now, there are other parts of the state we very successfully grow corn in Hermiston, Ontario. You're further inland, they still have a Mediterranean climate, but those are heat pockets, as is southwestern Oregon. So we very successfully grow corn in the Hermiston area. They set national yield records for 325 bushel corn. So you could grow hemp in that environment very easily. But you're up against 300 bushel corn at $5 a bushel at this point. You're up against potatoes, carrots, green beans. So again, the growers there are going to look at what does this crop bring me versus the value that I'm going to get out of it. In Rick's area, we have grown dryland corn in parts of the Columbia Basin. There's a experiment station called the Morrow Experiment Station, and they've grown dryland corn for the last 4 or 5 years. And they're getting about 35, 40 bushel corn. You may have seen some of that Brian Tuck had out. But again, if you're getting 300 bushels in the irrigated area and you're getting 35, 40 bushels in the dryland area, again, align expectations for what you're looking at as far as yields in those possible situations. So I guess as I think about this, we can do anything on small scales. If somebody is interested in growing a crop, in this state we've got a pliable enough environment that you're going to be able to grow what you want. You're going to have to figure out where you get the water from. You're going to have to figure out how you can plant it early and what you can do as far as protecting the seed so that you can get it planted and capture early season growing heat units. There are ways you can look at it, but don't assume that you're going to be able to immediately, once we've got it legal to grow, that it's immediately going to move out into large-scale production. So think about those things, align expectations appropriately, and we'll be in good shape.